So Kathy, you're writing a column. You decide from the beginning, how long does it take? How many rewrites do you do? How much reference do you have to do, etc.? Do you have to, do you have to clear anything with anyone? I'm curious about that. Okay, go ahead.
Sure. So the amount of preparation, research, and reporting that I do varies a lot depending on what the column is, what the topic is. There are some pieces that I write that I might spend months working on, not necessarily full time, but I'm doing reporting in the background, I guess I would say, you know, scheduling interviews, things like that, reading books about the subject matter. And then there are some things that I see something on TV that morning and it made me really angry. I decide I want to write about that day. And so that requires less advanced preparation. Generally, the process for me is that I talk to an editor either the morning that I'm writing a piece, and I have 2 hard deadlines per week on Mondays and Thursdays. So I would talk to an editor either Monday morning or Thursday morning, or sometimes the day before. And I say, here's what I'm thinking about writing. What do you think? And then I talk through what my argument is, because I write a column that's an opinion column. It's supposed to have an argument. And so they say, well, the editor might say, did you think about this issue? Did you think about that issue? I'm not sure I'm convinced by X argument, etc. And then I spend the day writing the piece and rewriting the piece and rewriting the piece. And one of the things that I learned from your class is that a piece of writing is never done. It just hits a deadline. I actually have a very distinct memory of some quiz you gave. I don't remember what it was. It was probably a grammar and syntax quiz based on Warner. And I was so proud of myself because I turned it in early. I was the first one to turn it in the class, and I made some stupid mistakes. And I learned from that experience, just keep checking, keep rewriting. The work of writing is never done. It can always be improved upon. So I spend all day rewriting. And then the draft will go to my editor, and I'll have some back and forth with the editor about questions that person may have, or if there's confusion about something that I wrote. Sometimes there's a little bit of fact checking that goes on at that point in the process, and then I sign off on the final text. It goes to a copy editor who will edit primarily for style, which does not always agree with Warner style, by the way.
Oh,
so I know. So we learned in your class to use the serial comma, and generally newspaper style does not use the serial comma, and it makes me very sad, I have to tell you.
And I forgot many of the things that I have forgotten, but I used to have perfect examples of why using that eliminates some confusion.
I agree.
Get those examples all the time, honey. And also, you recall that how we were about fragments.
Mm-hmm.
Don't use fragments. Well, of course.
I use them all the time.
Mrs. Close's brother, Bobby. Do you remember Mr. Bayless?
Of course.
Bayless? He used to be a bug on fragments, too. And the kids would bring in magazine articles or something and say, look, these writers use fragments. And he would always say to them, when you show me your first paycheck from having received, then I'll let you use fragments. Until then, of course, using the if you remember, I have told my classes many times a fragment is much more effective for getting the idea across than anything else. But the only thing I required, if you're going to use it with me, you put that little F above it so that you're saying, I know it's a fragment, but I'm doing it for style, okay?
Uh-huh. Well, I will say I use fragments all the time. I break all sorts of rules that you taught me all the time. And I know that I'm doing it. So I feel like that makes me a little bit less anxious about the act. I say, I know I'm breaking the rule, but I know I'm breaking the rule.
Okay.
Mr. Greco would probably still be disappointed in me. But I have these visions sometimes of, you could be eating the column that I wrote, because I remember a few times in class you would rip up a student. I forget if it was a student's paper or maybe it was a published piece.
Yes, oh yes.
Do you still do that?
Oh yes, oh yes. Very effective too. Someone.
Can't be good for your digestive system.
So
but-
that's how you go about your column.
Yes, generally.
Now, let me ask you this question. This is a little tougher question. Now, I know you are an opinion. You're on the opinion page on the left side, okay? And I understand that. But you are also a journalist. You're also a journalist. If you recall, honey, and I told you in sixth grade, I tell all my sixth graders when they come in, and I repeat my eighth graders, our main job in the school here is turning out critical thinkers. And there are 4 things you need to be a critical thinker. Remember, number 1, you got to be a good reader. If you can't read well, you can't be a critical thinker, because you have to arm yourself with the sophisticated ideas that are churning around. You got to be a competent writer. I won't say a great writer, but competent writer, a clear writer, so that you can exchange ideas. And those are the 2 things that we basically in school are concerned with teaching you. Then there are 2 more things that they're tough. We try to do them, but, well, you'll see. Number 3, you got to be objective. You've got to be fair. You can't let your own personal biases, you have to examine everything. And the 4th thing, and this is a real tough one, you have to have some moral courage, because if you are a critical thinker, at some point you are going to disagree with your peers, as you found out, of course, in 6th grade, that early. You're going to disagree with your government. You're going to disagree with your school. You're going to disagree with your church or your synagogue and you're going to disagree with your parents sometime. And that's a tough one, because those 2 things, those 2 ingredients, those last 2, basically they're instilled at home. And you know enough about this world, honey, to see we're in a tough shape as far as that goes.
That we are.
So how do you find yourself at times as letting your own thing, you have to rein in, et cetera, to be fair, to go beyond that last point to be fair? How do you handle that?
Well, as you point out, I, like any other writer, comes to a subject matter with certain biases. Everyone does. It's part of being human. And I think part of a journalist's job, at the very least, is to be conscious of those biases and to acknowledge them and to figure out what blind spots might that lead me to have. Seek out people who disagree with you and say, show me why I'm wrong. Or if I'm talking with someone, if I'm talking with an expert, let's say, with whom I agree, I say, who disagrees with you and why? And tell me who those people are. And it may turn out that I still very much agree with the viewpoint of expert number 1, the first person that I was talking with. And I'm still inclined to use whatever points of evidence that person presented to me as part of my argument. But at least I'm aware of what the weaknesses are, so I can address them. And in my writing, how I address them varies. Sometimes there might be a sort of to be sure paragraph that says, to be sure, the other side says X, Y, and Z. Here's why I think that's wrong. Or here's how I would temper my argument to account for these other types of concerns. So a lot of it is about being aware of your blind spots and being fair to those who disagree with you, that disagreement does not necessarily suggest ill motives, right? Reasonable people can disagree on difficult subjects, and it's not necessarily that I'm a good person and the other person who disagrees with me is a malevolent person. It's that we evaluate the evidence differently, and here's why. So it's thinking about those kinds of issues. It's difficult in the current environment, I will say.
Oh, that's very.
And I don't think that I always execute this well, to be quite honest. But it is something I try to be aware of and try to think about.
You know, honey, all the columnists that I've read, and I'm just wondering if you had any personal contacts with this person. He died last year. But I always thought among all the essayists I read, that Charles Krauthammer was the most brilliant. I mean, philosophically, you might have disagreed with some of his, but his ideas were, and if you recall, I used to give out those short little things writing, and you'd have to write, number one, the main ideas, and then your own personal opinion. And I used to use his a lot because many of his were not on politics. I would never have one on politics. Most of them were life lessons. And he wrote many of those, and they were so brilliant and everything. Did you read his 2 books that he, Things That Matter and that?
I've read part of his most recent book.
His most recent, okay, the one his son edited it and everything.
Yes.
After he died.
Yes.
Yeah. But I always thought, he, did you know the Varottis in town?
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Varotti?
Of course.
Dr.
Yeah, Robert Varotti and I had math classes together.
Okay, Dr. Varotti was in his medical class at Harvard, Krauthammer, when he had the accident and everything. But anyway, I always say he was just so brilliant, so brilliant. Okay, now, we got over it. And now, here's my other question as far as what's in the future? Now, are you going to write a novel? Are you going to write a book of essays? Are you thinking of a novel? Are you going to do a novel? Are you going to do let's see, whom do I want to use as an example here? Oh, are you going to do a Catcher in the Rye novel about Palm Beach Day School and prep school?
Maybe. You're giving me plenty of inspiration.
Oh boy, could you do something there, honey, huh? Are you thinking long terms and anything like that?
Potentially someday. I actually used to really enjoy writing fiction and drama, plays, things like that in school, in high school and in college. And there's a part of me that misses that. It's such a different set of writing muscles than writing nonfiction, than writing, I mean, even within the realm of nonfiction. So I write a column today, right? That's very different from the kind of writing that I used to do in my previous job. I was an economics reporter at the New York Times and a theater critic at the New York Times. And those 2 jobs were very different from one another, and they're both very different from what I do now. So it's a little bit hard to figure out how do I recover that muscle memory for the different genres of writing. And some of it's just practicing. I guess this is a long-winded way of saying I aspire to do some of these other kinds of writing. I'm a little bit intimidated by it right now just because I'm so out of practice. I think what's more likely in the medium term is that I would probably write some sort of nonfiction book. I don't know what about. Maybe something related to the economy, since that's what I most frequently write about. Maybe something related to some other public policy arena, such as immigration, which I write about frequently as well. So I'm not sure, but I do aspire to do something longer form in the near to medium term. Who knows what that'll be.
I will make a prediction.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to make a prediction. Someday in the future, I don't know when, next year, next 10 years, 5 years, a bolt's going to hit you. It's going to hit you. You're going to be maybe contemplating your path. You're going to get the idea for a novel. You're going to get the idea for it. It's going to hit you just like that, honey. Are you Are you
still writing?
I'm still writing, still trying to finish a book. Lisa and I did that tennis book.
I remember.
But, you know what I've gotten into lately, though? I told you I was never much of a science student. I got through it, but I was always into English, history, things like that. And I don't have that much of a background in science. But Lisa gave me, I got a book and I read on Darwinism and selected. I've gotten into biology and I've gotten into anthropology. Are you familiar at all with memes?
With memes, yes.
Memes. Are you familiar at all with Susan Blackmore? Okay.
I don't think so.
She's an English writer. She wrote The Meme Machine. And this is how memetics is the answer. It's the code thing with gene theory. In other words, how we are, if we had 10 hours today, about the fifth hour, I'd get in and ask you that one question I ask all my top people, different people. Do you believe in free will? Do you believe in free will? Oh my goodness.
I
That
don't know.
is a whole thing,
I don't
honey.
think we have enough time to answer
We
that
don't have enough
question
time
today.
for that, but you're thought of it, I'm sure you have, and you have
I
some
have.
interesting things to say about it, as I do. What's that one philosopher once said? Begin in doubt and end in certainty. Begin in certainty and end in doubt. Well, I'm 88 years old now, and I don't know which of those works. I don't know where I am.
It sounds like doubt then.
Huh?
If you don't know the answer, that sounds a lot like doubt to me.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of doubt, honey, but anyway, but it's interesting. And so I've gotten into this Darwinism, selective, et cetera, and gene theory and all that. It's very fascinating. Hard reading for me, not being a science person. I have to go back and read things 2 or 3 times, But anyway, no, but it's going to, it will probably, a meme that's going to hit you at some point and send you on your way. I predict that. We'll see.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
So what else is going on? Tell me about your family.
They seem to be doing okay. My parents are not leaving the house very frequently, or that's what they tell me. I'm not sure I completely believe them, but that's what they say, because I am worried about their health as well, just as I'm worried about yours. I'm glad to hear that you are not patronizing restaurants these days.
No, my daughter made me promise.
My brother and his family are doing well. They're out in California, where the various plagues have hit. Unfortunately, there's smoke everywhere and it's over 100 degrees. And of course, the pandemic is still going on, but they seem like they're okay. So that's a relief. But yeah, and my husband is doing well. He's
Now, what do you do, honey?
He's an economics professor.
In economics, where does he teach?
At NYU.
NYU.
Mm-hmm. And they just restarted classes. His classes are remote, so the risk is relatively small for him, but he's doing well. So yeah, things are doing okay.
Anyway, Kathy, honey, you're one of maybe the favorite of all time. And I still remember those days in 6th grade when you were supposed to go to the library for study hall and you'd cut it and come to my room.
I apologize for that. You were entitled to your free period.
No, I enjoyed it. They were great.
And I stole it from you, but I really enjoyed our time together. And honestly, I think every day about the lessons that you taught me. In 6th grade, you are what made me a writer. I firmly believe that. And I will hear from strangers, readers who write to me about something or other, and I will oftentimes repeat your pearls of wisdom. I think about, writing is never done. I think about the fact that there is freedom through structure, which is something that you talked about. I think about, I don't remember exactly how you put this dictum, but it was something like, if readers don't understand what you're saying, it's your fault, not theirs.
That's right. Absolutely.
And I think
be obscure clearly is what his name once said.
And I have to say, my faith in that particular truism has waned somewhat over the years. I do think that if somebody doesn't read the second half of the thing that I wrote, it's not my fault that they think that I wrote something else. But I do aspire to be as clear as possible, even when I'm writing about something really technical. It should be accessible to as many people as possible. People who are experts should be able to understand it. People who are novices should be able to understand it. And people should be able to understand the argument, the way that I'm linking different pieces of evidence. It's the onus is on me. And I think about that all the time. And you taught me that. And I'm so grateful. I think the skills that you gave me when I was 12 years old.
How old are you? Let's see here.
I'm 35.
35, my God.
I
35.
know. The skills that you gave me way back then, I still use every day, and they just gave me such an advantage over so many other people who want to be in this very competitive industry. And it's because of you. You know, you are what made me a writer.
And you can, and always remember, you can start a sentence with and or but.
And I do it
Can be
probably
very-
every time I write.
It can be very effective, but save it. Don't use it too much.
Uh-huh.
Honey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The
Really.
highlight of my year so far. Okay.
Well,
And good luck. And remember, keep your eyes open though, because that meme is going to hit you that says, there's a novel here. Okay.
I hope you're right. And thank you, really, thank you, not just for the lovely opportunity to catch up today, but for
And
everything
stay
you
safe.
did for me over the years.
I love you.
I love you too. You're great.
Okay. Bye-bye.